Hi, and welcome to Ask the Manager. We have John Lebeaux with us today, and I have to tell you, John researches everything. He's a town historian, so I thought I would research John before we came here.
Here we go.
I got so much information, I can't believe it. So I just want you to know, he's married and has 3 kids and how many grandchildren?
6.
6 grandchildren. Okay, and so he's a busy man. And he graduated from Shrewsbury High School and immediately, at 18, became a town meeting member.
That was when the law changed. So my birthday's in December. The law changed, I think, January 1st, 73, and I ran in May of 73.
Amazing. So, and then he goes to college and majors in English and theater. So we actually have
I
someone,
didn't know that.
yes, we have someone who was an actor and a stage manager at Foothills Theater before he did anything else. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he still has the ability to go to Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
He's got the skills. So, and he's a certified horticulturalist because he grew up. Is it just your father's Shrewsbury Nurseries? Was your father's?
Yeah, it was my grandfather and uncle had a farm that went from Fruit Street to the Northborough line. And after World War II, my dad took a piece of that property and converted it into the Shrewsbury Nurseries, which he and I operated for 60 years.
And so he did all that before he stepped out. And then I didn't realize you were acting town administrator for a month in Sterling?
So I was town administrator in Princeton for almost 6 years, and my good friend, there's two fellas, I don't want to surprise you, Kevin. There's 2 town managers or administrators who were named Jeff Ritter. One is still alive with us, but Jeff Ritter, who was the town administrator in Sterling, unexpectedly died. And the Sterling board approached the Princeton board, and while they were looking to even get an interim for 1 month, so I did 2 selectmen's meetings and I did a special town meeting while I was acting town administrator for the town of Sterling.
While
that's
he
while
was
you-
on the Board of Selectmen.
And while you were a town administrator in Princeton.
Yeah, I was just driving down the hill. It was looked at as the neighbors helping neighbors.
Wow.
My board gave permission for me to do that.
Yeah.
There was no financial thing with
Mutual aid.
Sterling. Yeah, I mean, I drive to Sterling pretty much once a day, I think, sign some papers, talk to the staff, tell folks don't do anything stupid while I'm here, and then you'll get your interim and you'll be on to new things.
So he can juggle. He can do a lot of tasks at one time. And you just had to be sure you signed it correctly, whichever
Yep,
location you were in.
that's correct.
So, but he also was on the Zoning Board of Appeals, which I had forgotten, on the Zoning Board of Appeals before he ran for selectman.
That's correct. In fact, Mo DiPaolo, I met him in Spag's parking lot, and he encouraged me to apply for the ZBA, and actually I didn't get it, and I was a little ticked off about that, and a year later I tried again.
So you were on the Zoning Board of
Yeah, for
Appeals,
2 years, and then I ran for selectman in '98.
and he ran for state senate.
Yeah, in '08, I ran as a Republican, not a good year to run as a Republican. It was an open seat, and I ran against present Senator Mike Moore, and Mike beat me very well, but I am very pleased that I beat him quite well in the town of Shrewsbury, and he wiped me out in the rest of the district.
But you beat him in the town of Shrewsbury because you were respected in the town of Shrewsbury.
Well, for whatever reason, but
For whatever reason.
I'm always grateful to the voters for that.
And then you left the town administrator of Princeton to go on the administration for Governor Baker.
Yeah, so with my background in agriculture and public service, I loved my job in Princeton, and I expected I would be there for the rest of my career. And then there was really only one job that potentially interested me, and when, obviously candidate Polito for LG, I expressed my interest in being commissioner of the Department of Agricultural Resources, and I was the commissioner of agricultural resources for the entire Baker-Polito administration, and then for a couple of months in the Healy administration assisting with the transition, and I finished up in early March.
And then, on top of that, you Are you still a member of the Federal Advisory Committee?
Yeah, so I was put on, I'm on a federal advisory committee to the Secretary of Agriculture about urban agriculture. Massachusetts has one of the best urban agriculture, if possibly the best urban agricultural program in the country. So that's a 12-member body. Actually, we were trying to arrange today's meeting. I have a Zoom meeting at 5 o'clock this afternoon with them.
See that? And are you still on the Mass Cannabis Advisory
No,
Board?
that was directly related to my position as commissioner. It's in the statute that the commissioner is. So I was an inaugural member, I guess you'd say, of the Cannabis Advisory Board, a body that advised the Cannabis Control Commission. This tier thing, different size, that was something I worked very hard on way back when things were getting organized. So that was a great experience.
So have I forgotten anything?
I like the garden.
You like the garden? And you have been home for 2 months now without work?
Yeah, this is probably the longest in my life I haven't
And
worked.
does your wife say, please go outside?
Well, I haven't, I mean, well, fortunately, I like to garden. I haven't started using the retired word yet. I currently say I'm unemployed. Maybe I'm looking for something else, or maybe I'm just trying to, figure it out.
You might like it.
Yeah, that's what they tell me.
And before we get started, we have to, time has gone by since our last show, congratulate the girls hockey team for being the Mass State champions. That
Fabulous.
is just amazing, and I didn't want us to get rolling without mentioning that. So we just recently had town meeting. What did you think of this town meeting?
I was very pleased at town meeting. There were 54 warrant articles. One of them was a citizen's petition. 53 were sponsored by some entity of the town or the CPC, and staff put a lot of hard work into bringing those forward because they were important initiatives, and all of them passed, so can't really ask for much more than that. We were really focused on communicating better before the town meeting and after the town meeting. I don't think we did a really good job last fall from a staff standpoint in doing that, so we wanted to clean it up, and I think we did that, and I think we were able to provide good information at town meeting in a business meeting format.
There was comment at the meeting about clustering articles. I like that they're clustered. How did you interpret that, and what did you take from that, the comments?
Well, I think the fact that we ended up voting on all the clusters as originally constructed, means that two things. It provided efficiency to the meeting, and town meeting members felt that they had enough information to still vote, or at least I hope so, right? I'm very confident town meeting members would stop it, and there was some discussion about that at the beginning of the CPA articles, and I think that once it played out, once questions were asked over the course of an hour or so over those 8 articles, that people had enough information to vote. So I like it. The part that I like the most is kind of that center part of the first day where it's those real routine articles like paying out-of-pocket expenses for disabled police and fire, right? We don't need to go one by one on those. More of a traditional consent agenda.
And John was in the town meeting seats for the first time in years.
Well, second
time.
Right.
How did you feel that town meeting went?
I think there's been a little bit of hey, look, we evolve. I mean, as a society, we evolve. I think there's been a little change in the tenor of town meeting. I'm not really trying to say it's good or bad. It's different. There's constantly a generational change going on. I appreciated the fact that we got out in 2 nights. And I think, I think most people do things respectfully. I do wish people would pay more attention to the materials that were presented to them prior to the meeting. There were a lot of questions asked that truthfully the answers were in documents that we had previously received. Town planner Chris McGoldrick, planning director McGoldrick did a fabulous job in a memo but it didn't look like that many people read it, because a lot of the questions that were asked that evening were clearly articulated in his memo.
I know John read it because he pointed out something that we needed to do a substitute for before the motion. So I appreciate that, because it does that as well. You know, sometimes we do have errors. We talk about you got to be perfect going into town meeting, because you get one or two chances a year, and sometimes, well, never are we perfect, but you know, sometimes changes can be identified that we can get the right information out to people in advance of the meeting, and John identified one
Well,
of
there's a
those.
lot of moving parts, and you know, when a proofreader comes in, not seeing, sometimes it blows right up in their face when other people have looked at it 100 times, and for some reason, it was a minor little number thing.
And so there was discussion about the cemetery and moving forward with the plans for the cemetery. That came about in the early 70s, mid-70s, where town meeting took a vote on that. And the plan, for as long as I can remember, was always to annex the cemetery across the way. I'm happy that it went through. I have a lot of thoughts on how people interpret what a cemetery should be. I think it's a sacred place. So I think we need to honor and respect the people that go before us and are buried or cremated and placed in the cemetery. I was a little taken aback with how people perceived, what do you call it, ground burials. But I mean, a lot of people believe that that's what should be done. So I think we need to go back to respecting people's values. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I mean, honestly, I've been hearing that the cemetery was going to go across the street for 20, 30, I mean, as long as I've been active or I was active in town government. So it was kind of a given to me. I mean, that it had been vetted, it had been discussed, it had been voted, and it was no secret. Of course, you know, people move in, move out, and some found it surprising. I think it makes perfect sense to locate it across the street from the existing cemetery. I mean, just for efficiency's sake, relative to maintenance. I mean, rather than to have to, when I was in Princeton, a little teeny town, I think we had 8 or 10 little cemeteries. Some of them were completely full, and we had to mow them, you know, take care of them. Some of them we were doing interments in, but you just putting stuff back on the trailer, driving to another part. I mean, this makes sense.
Logical sense.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And then there will be future work to the area, which I recall it being destined for passive recreation. I don't have any strong opinion on what should be done for the parks section. I think that the Parks Commissioners have done a good job going forward. Hopefully they'll continue to with planning our parks and how they're utilized, knowing what the needs are and what people want, which, speaking of that, a lot of people spoke about walking in Prospect Park. I wonder, if we had more sidewalks, would people use them? Because when I think of so many busy streets and everybody's in a hurry, I just think that we as a town always thought, oh, we'll save that money, we can't do that this year. But I really think we need to be committed to extending sidewalks because more people are looking towards walking for exercise and just general enjoyment. And I think we need to offer that to the people in the town. So I don't know how you will balance that with everything else that's going on, because I think we're behind. I'll drive down a street and I'll say to myself, I can't believe there's no sidewalk here. And that's not to blame anyone, it's just, you know, things have changed. Traffic is busier, people are walking.
So, but Don, people want to have sidewalks, but they don't necessarily want the sidewalk to be in front of their house.
Because they don't want to lose their profit.
Right, so for instance, a long, long time ago, we thought about putting sidewalks on Lake Street from Route 9 up towards Glavin.
Right.
And there was just a very, very, very strong neighborhood negative response to that. There was the yellow ribbons around the trees.
Right.
And they were. It would have required big mature trees to be taken down, and people have to value what's more important to them.
And I have people in that area stopping me to talk about wanting sidewalks because the traffic has changed. Traffic patterns are different now, and there are more cars, so they feel that they can't walk where they used to peacefully walk with those trees, and there's nowhere for them to walk safely in their neighborhood. So a lot of that has changed along the way too. And speaking of that, the police have gotten a grant to, what's it called? Something to do with traffic, road safety grant. And so I've seen the police out. I've seen them in intersections. In fact, I'll be at an intersection and I always count 1, 2, 3 cars went through the red light. And I'm always doing that. I feel like I should have a bubble on the top of my car, but I was so excited that the police were actually pulling people over, like they were there, and that's what they did. And I thought, well, maybe that will slow people down and they'll stop when the light is turning red. But that's not just in Shrewsbury, that's all over. What do you think?
I don't have much to say.
Do you notice it?
Well, yeah, I walk. I mean, I'm thinking about Lake Street. If you live in one of the subdivisions off of Lake Street, you want the sidewalks. But your neighbor, like on Lake Street, may not want to lose what's in front of their house. I mean, walking is a bigger deal now than it was when I was a young man or a kid. People want to walk. My wife and I walk on Walnut Street, no sidewalks. I try to wear something that people bright that people see, because my joke is I don't want people to say, oh, they were such a lovely couple, when we were out for our walk.
Yeah.
But people move pretty fast, and some places it doesn't make sense to walk on the left like you're supposed to because of the configuration of the road, and you have to be mindful. I mean, you just do.
Yeah. So, did you want to go forward with any questions?
Oh, sure. So, I have some questions of what affects me as a resident of the town of Shrewsbury, and my family. So, what's up with the Toblin Hill Road Bridge construction? I walk there frequently. Honestly, when I get there, and this is no shot, they're not working. There's a lot of things there.
Yeah.
I never have yet seen anybody working.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah, so we had one little slowdown that shouldn't really cause much of a delay, but the residents finally received approval to have natural gas run across the bridge and back into the neighborhood. So we were about to start work. We got that news. Not a lot of work needs to change for it, but we need to make accommodations to run the natural gas line with the bridge. And as soon as that gets all squared away, we do still think it'll be open no later than the end of July.
Wonderful.
So we'll be moving forward. Yep.
Okay, I think that's. I mean, people.
Yeah.
People don't expect to have a bridge out forever.
Forever, right?
People
yeah.
understand that if something could fail, it's going to be fixed.
Yeah.
So also in the Public Works Department in the Precinct 5 area, so Walnut Street between Route 9 and Main Circle is in pretty rough shape. There's been a lot of utility projects, either water or sewer, over the years. Is that on to be repaved?
It is, yeah. I believe it's this cycle of paving, because we've been waiting to do all that work and do it smart and not have to reopen the road. So we did gas line, water line work, if there's gas in there, but I think there was. And then we did some storm drain work last year, and we're done with the utility aspects of it. So we are moving forward with paving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, everyone will all be very excited when it gets repaved, until we all notice that now with the nice repaved road, people are driving even faster.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, but that's what's going to happen, and we need to expect that.
Yeah.
So as Donna mentioned, as the grandparent of 6 who frequently come to Shrewsbury, there was a lot of concern among the younger generation of my family about the Dean Park Playground.
Yes.
Now, it did reopen. If you ask my 3-year-old granddaughter, she thought it took a little too long. So I think there were some delays, but I mean, some of it's just inherent into public construction. Could you talk about that a little?
So, I mean, the funny part is there's a lot of things that came into play with that. A lot of minor parts and pieces, and then one bigger things. So when we construct a playground like that, we have to rely upon the manufacturer for every part and piece. Even if you could go to Home Depot and source a 3/4 inch bolt and a nut, we can't just go up there and do it because it has to be the exact length so there's not overhang and things like that. So we are waiting literally on some hardware that caused the delay. And then also the playground was originally designed with a net feature on it. And when it was installed, Kevin Esposito, who's the head of Parks Maintenance, noticed some finger pinch points, and he's a certified playground official, or I don't know the proper
Inspector?
designation, and he wouldn't accept it. He made the company come back, take that out, and it's not critical to the, it's up without it right now. It won't be reinstalled because he felt that it was unsafe for our kids, or the kids that would be playing on it. So they gave us a refund and came and took it out. So those are the two big things that.
But it's
that
open for
slowed us down.
business now.
It is, yes,
For
yeah.
the season, that's
But
good.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting because those certification with regards to the hardware slowed us down because we needed their bolts, and I'm proud of Kevin for doing what he did for
Did the right thing.
that aspect that he didn't feel was safe. So yeah.
I mean, I don't
Keep
know your
going.
format.
I know how to
So,
interrupt.
okay, so switching over now to, my previous work intersected with the town in a few different ways. So, and I know the first one I'm going to ask about, I think former Assistant Town Manager Kristen Loss sort of took the lead. So an unfortunate occurrence is the fact that an invasive insect called the spotted lanternfly has established populations in, right now, 4 communities in Massachusetts, one of which is the town of Shrewsbury. So who's going to kind of take lead on that, and what, if anything, and what's the town doing?
Yeah, so it's interesting because we had a report of an insect in town, and I thought it was reported as a spotted lanternfly. I reached out, I forget, you probably remember her name.
Jen Foreman?
Yeah,
North?
Jen. And she said, well, Kevin, it's impossible really at this point because
they
they're a
haven't
little,
hatched yet.
they haven't hatched yet. So that was good news. So really it's on my plate at this point to kind of coordinate with the state. The state has done a great job of keeping us in the loop and informing us how they think it got here on like truck trailers, and they like to attach, I believe it's the egg sacs to those metal containers, and then they eventually move here off the sea and from New Jersey or other ports of entrance and get parked at places where all the UPS facilities or otherwise are in the community, and then they hatch. So we're monitoring it, and I'm hoping it is although I think it's, from having family in New Jersey and seeing what they see, I think it's going to be a little harder to contain than the Asian longhorn beetle, but
Yeah.
that's a successful program, Asian longhorn beetle. So if we can build off of that success, we'll work with the state officials as much as we can. So.
Okay, so I just heard this week there's also a population in Springfield. They saw some of the eggs starting to hatch, so we'll get a sense of what this is going to look like. Unfortunately, and you've seen it with your family, it's not pretty.
It is not. I mean, just polluted, overwhelming amounts of those insects on the sides of buildings and trees, and
so there's going to be a negative impact, say, to agriculture, to ornamental plants. But then there's just going to be sort of a negative quality of life issue. There could be similar to when gypsy moths get really bad, and they're making messes of people's decks and walks. And okay, well, I'm glad the town. You just have to stay focused. But 2 other areas. So the farmers market now is moving over to a kind of a town-run program.
That's
now.
right,
So how's that going to work?
we actually hired a part-time employee to be the market manager, and that employee is coordinating with vendors, and we'll have very similar amount of vendors that we had last year, but same location and same opportunities, and we're getting the police station down, so that project will be wrapping up. It won't impact it, but yeah, we're moving forward in a pretty traditional front despite the change. It's officially being managed for the recreation department. And we thought that was a little bit more common than it actually ended up being. I think there's only 2 other communities where it's a town-run
Right. Yeah. No, that is
approach.
unusual. It's usually government organization, a nonprofit
Yeah.
that does it.
Yeah, so, but Laurel Rossiter is the new recreation director, and she quickly identified, hey, if we're going to do this right, we need, a resource, and so we got that resource in place, and I think we'll have a successful season.
Good. I
Get
mean, it's a
started.
great value
Yeah.
to the community, and it's a great value to the farmers. I
Right.
mean, many of them, wherever they are, they're off the beaten track, so they got to go to the customers. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing. Another? So, also my work, we didn't regulate, but I was in the marijuana space, so to speak. We have 2 dispensaries in Shrewsbury. Could you talk a little bit about how, the economics of that, and, whether or not there's, the impact fee, is there an impact? Does the town plan to continue to seek the impact fee? Some towns have voluntarily said, there really isn't anything here. I know there's a lot of conversation that the impact fee might be changed either by the commission or by the legislature.
Yeah, a lot of thoughts on that. So I think, so we do have the 2 retailers, and so we have the Verilife that's on Route 9, and we have the Botanist on Route 20. And those are 2 very large marijuana players in the country. PharmaCann is the parent company of Verilife, and Acreage Holdings is the parent company of the Botanist. And I think because of those resources, first and foremost, those companies have committed to honoring their host community agreement with the town, and not, seeking, tick for tack, is there an actual impact? They're going to continue to provide the 3% revenue for this first 5-year period, of which we're heading into year 3 for both of them. They are producing meaningful revenue, roughly between $350,000 and $400,000 a year to the community.
And Kevin, could you split that? How much it is based on the purchases made in town, and how much of that is based on the impact fee?
So it's all based on purchases right
terrific.
now with our agreements. So it's just a 3% impact fee on total sales at
So
both
is
of
it
those.
400,000 for both of each
Combined.
combined?
Yep. And then we get an equivalent amount from the excise tax revenue that's the town's portion that's collected by the state and then distributed to us. So nearly $1 million a year in total economic benefit.
And just amongst the 3 of us
Yep.
and whoever might be watching, I mean, the impact
has been right, and
minimal.
that's why I started with the appreciation of those 2 companies, because there isn't really an impact. I think that my very less than deep assessment of this is, when the casinos were being contemplated in various communities, that host community fee really became a term and kind of blended into the marijuana space as it became, an aspect. And there's a lot of people that were concerned because of the unknown, and rightfully so. We are budgeting appropriately as to not rely upon that revenue for the long term, because while we're in good graces and have strong relationships with those 2 entities on this first 5-year agreement, and everyone's willing to honor the contract, I don't think the commission will allow us, they won't, according to the laws right now, allow us to up those agreements. My plea to the commission is allow amicable agreements like ours to continue, right? It's in paper, don't make it retroactive, don't make it immediate, let's just have these initial agreements. In some ways, Shrewsbury as a community stepped up and said, the voters of the Commonwealth allowed this, and, we'll have the industry join our community, and I think, those contracts in place should be honored under that commitment. Because, we all kind of wrung our hands going to town meeting. John, you were on the select board at the time. How is this going to play out? Or people, how will they see it? What will the benefits be? What will the challenges be? And I think the benefits have clearly outweighed any challenges that we've experienced. And of course, we're moving into an environment where that industry is evolving already, and the select board has approved one delivery,
right.
one delivery operator and one courier business. So the courier business is I think it's the easiest way to put it, the DoorDash of marijuana. They'll go to a retail, a customer orders with them, they go to the retailer, pick it up from the retail, and then deliver it to your home. And the other one is the delivery operator, is they'll have their own stock. It's just kind of like, I won't say Amazon of marijuana, but they don't have a storefront. But
Right, but that's also to help the folks getting into the business.
social equity.
Right, so you don't have to maintain inventory necessarily,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
not having enough capital to do that
Correct.
would prevent you from entering the marketplace.
Yeah.
So
So
is there
yeah.
is there regulation around how they deliver, what the
Absolutely.
delivery process
Yeah,
is?
very strict.
I think they have to
Yeah.
use, I think it's recorded, the
Yeah.
transaction, it's very,
Yeah, so
Person to person
yeah.
versus you can't just
You can't
do
leave
the
it.
Amazon, drop it
You,
on
a-
the
you
doorstep.
verify the ID, they are wearing body cameras, the vehicles are secure, no financial transactions happen at that delivery point, it's all electronic prior to delivery. If there's no one home or it doesn't, the call isn't answered, it's got to go back before the end of the day, so they've got to set their delivery time up to be able to make it back to the retailer before they close their operations for the day. Unfortunately, I think for some, like, it can't be delivered to a hotel room. It can't be, delivered on college campuses and things like that.
so the delivery service, the product is in town, the town will benefit from the excise tax because the sale was made in town.
Mm-hmm.
The courier service, is there any money that comes to the town from the
Only
courier
if they're
service?
hitting that retailer within the community.
And it would,
so it's
but
hit
it
or
would,
miss.
right, and then actually that money would come out from the retailer, from
Right.
its, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think it's been minimal impact, and just another source of revenue. I
Yeah.
mean, the town is all, the landfill, I mean, these little, whatever you want to call them, niches or one-offs, it all helps.
Yeah, it really does. It really makes up local receipts and keeps those numbers more stable. The more, of course, in financials, the more diversified your revenue sources are, the more stable you tend to stay as economic conditions change, and we're benefiting from those things right now.
The Community Preservation Committee, I have to say, I was impressed with what they chose, what their selection was, because there were some applicants that I thought weren't, certainly in my opinion, not worthy to be granted any of the funds. And I was impressed with what they chose and how they went about, because they were so very town-focused with all of them. I think they did a really good job and should be commended for that.
Yeah.
And did you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, I was not a proponent of adopting the Community
neither.
Preservation Act, but I always said, with more money, we can do more good things. I mean, it was a philosophical question. Do we want to tax more, or do we not want to tax more? I did hear the comment at town meeting, and I think it's valid that often these types of activities are what often a town can't do because it has to do the things it has to do. It has to educate, it has to do public safety. So, I mean, I have no beef. Well, I shouldn't have even said that. I mean, I always stipulated if more money came in, they would do good things with it. And I think we saw at town meeting a lot of good things
Yeah.
at a cost.
Yeah,
At a cost.
it is at a cost. And I think that one of the interesting things about this is the assessment or the tax is the lowest that it can be under state law, but it's still providing very meaningful revenue because of our tax base. $1 million a year is 50% on average of our total capital improvement plan. So it's a meaningful amount of money, and it'll serve us well.
Is there a new process for how the select board votes to appoint someone to a committee?
There's a new internal process that the board is using for two reasons. One, to kind of make sure that the conversation in a public setting is positive and never negative towards someone who wants to volunteer their time to the community. And because the board has recently, I think, I don't know how different it is than in the past, but established some new committees recently, like CPC, that they had to appoint full membership to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and just some others. Those are complicated things, so whenever you have 30 applicants come in, how do you get to 5? So the board has used a blind individual preference worksheet that they fill out individually and submit to the administrative staff. And then we tally those votes and then present it to the board for their discussion at the meeting.
So does the board actually publicly say, I vote for John Lebeaux,
Yes.
I don't vote for Kevin Mizikar?
Um,
Do I do that? Because if that's not public, I don't think it's a good idea.
Yes, they identify who they are appointing to the committee, and all candidates are listed on the agenda. So they may not say publicly that you're not voting for Kevin Mizikar, and that's part of not trying to shame anyone that, again, applied for a volunteer position, but it's all transparent of who was approved and who wasn't approved.
So if it's 3-2, do I know who the 2 people are that didn't vote for me or didn't vote for someone? Because I think I should know which people voted for that person and which people didn't. And I'm not sure that comes through in a public meeting.
I think if there's...
Do you know this?
Well, it's a vote. I mean, it's a voice vote. So eventually, it would be someone makes a motion to appoint X to the committee, and then the board votes by voice vote, and
So it
people
is
say
public.
aye and people say no.
Yeah,
Okay,
where there's
so-
not that clear, yeah.
So it is public, so you know who didn't.
Yeah,
Okay, I misunderstood.
I think the board affirmatively and publicly says yes to someone.
Yep.
It doesn't publicly say no to someone. It's just all the people and who got appointed, and you can.
They still vote in
I
public.
want to know if the vote's 3-2 or whatever, who the other 2 people voted for or who they didn't vote for. I think that needs to be public information. So in other
honestly,
words, if
Donna,
I.
yeah, I mean, I'm sorry I am.
Go ahead.
If you listen to the meeting, you can hear it. I don't know if the minutes of the meeting will reflect who voted in which way. I think it might just say, the board voted by majority vote to make this
or
appointment.
3-2 or whatever it is, yeah. But no matter what method we used, without this preparatory sheet or not, it was always a voice vote that it would come down to.
So we've had controversial town meetings where people were afraid to take a stand and vote, and they'd say, I want this to be a ballot. I don't want to publicly tell people how I voted. And I always took the stand, if you're elected to that, then you need to stand up and be counted for whichever way you vote. People need to know how you vote. I just want to be sure that the public can see how someone has voted, whether they voted for John Lebeaux or they didn't vote for John Lebeaux. I want to know what stand they took.
So, let's take the agenda last night. There were 2 candidates for the retirement board, and one candidate was moved and voted unanimously, and the other one wasn't discussed.
So that's fine, because
Yep.
it was unanimous.
Yep.
Everybody voted one way.
Yep.
But if there's a split vote,
Sure.
the public needs to know who voted
Yep.
which way. I just think that's important, because that's part of that elected official's job to say to the constituency, I voted for him, I didn't vote for her, or whatever. So I have only heard it secondhand, and I haven't seen it, so I'm not really sure, but I just want to be sure that they stand up and they're counted for whatever their vote is.
I think the discussion and deliberation at the meeting itself hasn't changed. The board knows where there's consensus going into, not going into the meeting, once they get at the meeting and we open the spreadsheet. And that's a tool the state identified as appropriate for personnel reviews in public settings, and therefore we've used it for these appointments.
So are we having more water breaks, or it's just that we see that there were more water breaks because we get notified now, which I think is pretty cool?
Yeah, we've had our fair share in the last few weeks. They seem to come in fits and spurts, but it's a normal amount.
But they're not in the same location, they're
No.
all over town.
No. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can't say, oh, that area is really old.
Yep.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have vastly improved our communications, both to the immediate neighborhood and then generally on the website, so you may be seeing it more.
And you're a new member of the police station building committee.
I am, recently.
And so amazing progress has been made, and to see the old police station taken down really shows the glory of the new building. Like, you couldn't really see it because you
Right.
couldn't, and it'll be even better once the landscaping and the paving and everything is done. The building committee voted to pave the driveway around Town Hall so that it's one connected paving job, which
So you don't have a seam like
Right.
The
Right.
old to the new.
Exactly. And so I think that was a wise decision, and I'm glad that whoever thought to do that brought it up.
It was Keith.
It was Keith. So there are many things that town campus is benefiting by this police station being built, whether it's parking, the paving. So it's within the scope of the project. But I hope that the public realizes that there's been many other benefits as a result of this project, because it's going, I'm excited at how it's going to be in the end. Because, I mean, already just seeing that building come down, you can see the, front of the face of the building.
Yeah, and I'm excited for the landscaping work as you have referenced with the old building coming down, and then that last phase of work, which is, taking the front lawn of the town hall, taking the current western entrance away, and then that becomes green space and plantings and sidewalks with picnic tables, and then the new west entrance is the entrance that just serves the police station right now, the public entrance. I'm excited to see all that once it's done.
What do you think when you pass by?
Well, I gotta admit, I do think it's big, which is like a lot of other people do, but I also know the other one, the only reason it looks so big is because the other one was too small.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, the other one, I mean,
Legos.
yeah, I mean, and I don't know, for 20 years, we've heard that was too small or more. So it was about time. And the way Shrewsbury does business, that building's gonna sit there for a long, long time before something else happens. So I understand some people think it's too big, but you're not just planning for now, you're planning for
50
decades.
years.
Right.
At least 50 years, right?
Yep.
And the way Shrewsbury goes, it'll be more than 50 years.
Exactly.
Because even the old police station, I think it was in the 80s that we voted down a new police station. And so it was from, I want to say, about the mid-80s to now that we finally got what we were trying to, make do with what we had for all those years.
Yeah, things happen like that.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be something that the town can be very proud of. And I think once the landscaping's done, it'll all feel more connected.
Yep.
Will there be anything done to Town Hall in the next decade?
Well, I think so.
It can take so long.
We need to because of the staffing levels that are in the building. Remember, we have Celco there, we have the school central administration office mostly there, and then we have the town staff there, all operations. So something has to give, whether one of those entities moves out or, we extend that building. We're at capacity or over capacity right now, and the biggest immediate need that we have that disappoints me every day that we can't get another solution in place for is the recreation department. So we're really trying to turn recreation programming around and have more programs for the public and offer more things in the parks, and it's buried upstairs with DPW because that's kind of the evolution of the last 5 or 6 years. So we've got to get them out and into a more public space.
John, you've been a part of this evolution that I'm going to talk about next. There's the capital improvement budget, There's the stabilization fund, there's the insurance fund, the water stabilization, the sewer stabilization, stormwater capital budget. There's all pockets for money now. Is it just that it's labeled differently and you always had those pockets anyhow? Or is this good planning? What would you like both of you to say?
Well, I mean, it identifies particular functions or reasons for having it. I mean, we had one stabilization account that we could have used for a lot of things. You can have multiple stabilization accounts, which I guess is what we have now. The stormwater thing, that's, well, I mean, these are often collections of fees rather than collections of taxes, so maybe it needs to be sequestered in a little different if you're using an enterprise model, right, Kevin?
Yeah, no, that's true. I think it was 2012 municipal modernization came into play, and maybe updates in 2016 or something like that, where we weren't allowed to have multiple stabilization accounts in the past, as John said, and now we do, and the bond rating agencies love seeing that, and they know what's directly attributable to a utility rate and what's directly attributable to the general fund, and it locks up those funds for those particular purposes. So it historically hadn't been an option to cities and towns.
And the public should know that we're always in good standing with bond rating, because
We're in more than good standing. I mean, actually, that was a question I was going to. I mean, well, first of all, the new. I think it's appropriate. You should talk about the new Beal School closeout, because that was a big success.
Yeah.
But we've also, our bond rating. I mean, that's sort of a abstract concept to some folks, and it's not like looking at that building and either saying, geez, I love that building, or that, why did they spend so much money on that building? But it's one of the best things the town has accomplished in decades. It was something that the town had been working on, reaching for decades. Could you talk a little bit about both the Beal closeout and the bond rating?
Yeah, so the Beal closeout has gone exceedingly successfully in a couple standpoints. So we originally borrowed what at the time we all thought was about 90% of the money that we were going to need to borrow for the project. So we did that to not take on too much debt at the beginning and kind of manage the interest rates, manage cash flow and things like that. But in the end, we only had to borrow once. And despite only borrowing what we thought was about 90%, we still had $3.5 million left over. So if you go back and look at the original project cost versus the final project cost, you're looking at about 11 million total savings. You get state reimbursement on that. So the town specifically avoided over $7 million in our direct out-of-pocket costs for that project, which is phenomenal. I mean, you're talking hundreds of dollars a year on the individual tax bills, which town meeting and all voters who voted approved, but we'll never have to incur. And we got further benefit from that 3.5 million because we moved it over to other projects, which we would have had to borrow in this very high interest rate right now. We have those funds borrowed at less than or about 3%. And the current municipal bond market is nearly double that at this point. So big savings there. And we haven't shared this far and wide yet, but MSBA actually came back to us after their final audit, which they will vote on in August. So we've got to hold our breath a little bit, but they're not going to share anything that's too risky with us. They're going to send us another $1 million back.
Nice.
So, we'll have, because of their final reconciliation and what they owe us under the agreement, so we'll have ended up with about $4.5 million in our pocket that, again, we can use for other purposes. So it's probably can't beat that. That's a project that you'll never beat no matter how hard you try, as far as the financial performance of it and the physical features of the building. It's amazing. And then, the bond rating, especially as interest rates climb, it's a huge savings to the town.
And what is our bond rating, Kevin?
It's a AAA.
And what does that mean?
It means it's the highest possible rating that you can get as a municipality or any rated agency. It's rated higher than the state government, the federal government. So It means we get really low interest rates. We can borrow money and take on a lot of projects without having a significant impact to the ratepayers in comparison to what other communities may face whenever they take on debt.
And it's not like most municipalities
No.
have AAA ratings.
No,
They
there's
don't throw them out like.
No, there's less than
Participation awards.
Yeah, there's less than 50 AAA ratings in the Commonwealth, and
Not too bad.
it's pretty rare.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so
Assistant town managers, how's your structure with assistant town managers coming along?
it's coming along really well. So I'm happy to say that we've made an offer to, and it was accepted by Keith Baldinger. Keith's been with the town for several years, 2 different stints. He's run his own construction business. We're filling the assistant town manager for operations position, so we retooled that position versus how it was set up when Kristen Loss was here. So be a lot more broad project management, department support, departmental operations support versus kind of supervisory oversight of a particular wing of the organization. And we had 60 candidates or 60 applicants. We narrowed it down to 10 initial candidates that we screened, 2 of those from out of state. There were sitting town administrators, sitting assistant town administrators and managers, and we moved on to a round of 6 and made a selection thereafter. So Keith performed really well and was able to describe how he would operate in that position to the pleasure of the panel and myself and those involved, and we're excited to have him start on June 1st.
Excellent.
Made a great choice.
Thank
Made
you.
a great choice. And who was on this panel?
So the panel included, of course, myself, the Human Resources Director, Christina Ordung, 2 members of the Select Board, John Samia and Michelle Conlon, Dr. Sawyer, Deputy Fire Chief Seth Colby, Assistant Town Manager David Snowden. Did I get everyone? Yes, I got everyone. So
That's great.
no, excuse me, Police Chief Kevin Anderson.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
Well, I think I commend you for being able to ultimately, like John said earlier, promote from within,
Mhm.
and you got a very qualified candidate.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited to have him on board and free up some of the workload.
And we're going to run short on time, so I just want to know if there's anything you want to tell us before we go forward with any other questions.
Yeah, I mean, something that's going to be coming out in the community over the next day or so is that I was contacted Friday evening by the State Department of Housing and Community Development, identifying that emergency homeless shelter was going to be set up in the community, and that shelter started receiving families over the weekend, and there's about 16 families in that shelter as of this afternoon, and there's some school-aged children. We expect up to 9 or 10 more families over the near term. There's no definite end date for the state's stopping the use of the facility that they're operating in town. Those individuals, families will be supported by a state provider that's on site to provide meals and medical assistance and things like that. So oftentimes in these situations, residents will reach out and ask what they can do, and if there is anything that these families needs for assistance, we'll be publishing a list and directing residents where they can take items, materials for donations. So we'll be working with Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services. Representative Kane and Senator Moore are heavily involved, and the Select Board is helping. So close coordination between myself and Dr. Sawyer and his team, and we'll be providing a formal notice to the public and the school community and things like that. So there is significant state assistance for education for these students that will begin or continue their education with us. And that comes in the form of 2 different grant programs. One is a straight $1,000 flat to provide general support per student per year, and then a little over $100 a day when the students are in the classroom. So it's a lot more than there used to be for programs like this. And honestly, I don't like getting phone calls in the evening on Fridays, but I can't say enough about the state for reaching out. Undersecretary Jennifer Maddox reached out, called me, was able to chat with her Friday evening. So they gave us a heads up, which is all you can really ask, because they don't have to do that. It's their shelter program and they're the state. But
And
they've
where are
been
these people
very
coming
open.
from?
Kind of all over. Some are migrants that don't have a prior origin community within Massachusetts, and some do have an origin community within Massachusetts and have some other challenge in their life that's causing homelessness. But we're still learning more about the families. It's only been a few days at this point, and the school department has been out on site with primary interaction. So we had a big meeting this afternoon with the state to learn more. But we'll be providing a lot of information to the community and keep folks in the loop, which is all we can do.
So will this come under the authority of Secretary-designate Augustus when he takes on as Secretary of Housing, or is that different?
I'm not exactly sure, to be honest, how DHCD, which is housing, I assume it falls under the new secretariat, but I don't know where the splits are going to be and how quickly that'll happen. But it'll be interesting, for sure.
Do you have anything else?
I want to congratulate you and thank you for 6 years.
Oh, thank you.
You're
6
coming up on
years.
6 years,
That's
I think
right.
early July.
That's right.
I haven't been watching meeting, Kevin. Are you all, I'm pretty, I think I would have heard something. Are you all set for
I
your
am all set.
future?
Yep. Thank
They've
you for
signed you up
asking.
for another contract?
Yeah, so I have another contract in
Wonderful.
place, and I've been reappointed for another 3-year term, which will take me through 9 years and hopefully more.
Wonderful.
It's been quick.
It is.
It does go by fast.
6 quick years, yeah. So,
And then there's going to be a 300th centennial celebration.
yeah.
How does that get organized? Through Parks and Rec? Or?
I imagine that you'll see a select board have a really large committee that will help, of volunteers that will help organize and fundraise and plan parades and events. Some communities do it as a day. Some communities do it as a month-long, year-long, however you want to approach it. So,
When would that take place?
1727 is the founding, so 2027.
27.
So you said it, I don't know how much more time we have.
We have
Forgive me.
20 seconds.
Oh, you see the town not funding that at all? I mean, you think it's all going to be private?
I think we'll take a crack at the private donations and then we'll see. Yeah, but the fund that was established was to receive donations, but there can be a municipal contribution.
Well, John was a wonderful guest. Thanks for being
Oh,
our
it's
guest.
fun.
And
Yeah.
thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.